So then you should go to Surah 2:190. Surah 2:190 says that if they should attack you, you must not go beyond limits in your response, in your defense. And I always ask my Muslim friend, what are you not supposed to go beyond? And they say, well, we're not supposed to go beyond whatever it is. And I say, well, what about reading the very next verse? And slay them wherever ye find them. So if we attack you, you're supposed to slay us. What more can you go beyond once you've slain us? So then they usually jump to Surah 5, Ayah 31 and Ayah 32 that I mentioned about earlier. In Surah 5, Ayah 31, it's a story of Cain and Abel. Cain kills his brother Abel, doesn't know what to do with the body, so he sees a raven scratching in the ground, and he follows what the raven does. The next verse is rather interesting. I'm going to paraphrase it, or I could read it right from the Quran itself, so I get it correct. Surah 5, Ayah 32 then goes on and stipulates that you are not to go about killing people. Let me just read it so I don't paraphrase it wrong. It says this. Because of that, we ordained for the children of Israel, now remember, children of Israel, that's interesting, that if anyone killed a person, not in retaliation for murder, to spread mischief in the land, it would be as if he killed all of mankind, and if one saved a life, it would be if he saved the life of all mankind. You're not to kill, you're to save. That's what it suggests. It seems pretty straightforward. And they love to quote this one. The problem is, take a look and ask, who is this referring to? It's to the children of Israel. This has nothing to do with Muslims. You need to read the whole verse. What's more, when I talk to my radical friends, and I've got lots of radical friends over here, and they are friends. They want to kill me, but they are friends. When I talk to my radical friends, I say, how do you exegete this verse? And they say, when I read that, that has to do with Muslims. Well, what are you going to do with the children of Israel? Well, we don't do with the children of Israel. We just go and say everything in the Quran has to do with us. So rather than say people in there, put Muslim in there. So then reread it, and it says, and if indeed, if anyone... if it would be as if he killed all of mankind, if anyone were to spread wishes, if he were to kill a Muslim, it would be as if he had killed all of Muslims. And if anyone saved the life of a Muslim, it would be as if he saved the life of all Muslims. And I say, what is this referring to? That means if you kill a Muslim in Kosovo, or in Iraq, or in Afghanistan, or in Kashmir, or in Serbia, if you kill any Muslim in those areas, you have killed me, Mr. Smith. Therefore, it's incumbent upon me to go to Iran, to Iraq, to Serbia, to Kosovo, to Kashmir, to every one of these places where there are conflagrations going on, and I must save the life of just one Muslim, because by saving the life of that one Muslim, I have saved all of Islam. That's how they take this verse. Now, my liberal friends in here are aghast by what the radicals are doing, and I say to the two of them, which one has the better exegesis? And they cancel each other out. And that's exactly what you can do with the Quran. Because if you do not take the context, you can pretty much impose anything you want on those verses. Because there is no context there once you've taken out children of Israel. But then my radical friend says, men, you need to go to Surah 9:5. Slay the unbeliever wherever ye find them. Besiege them. Lay in wait for them with every kind of ambush. I did a debate with Dr. Tamimi, and the same debate that I had in Cambridge. And I said to him, what are you going to do with this verse? Right next to him was another Muslim, a convert named Dr. Timothy Winters, who was head of department there at Cambridge University. He was a theologian. I'd been a Muslim for about 3 years. I said, what are you going to do with Surah 9:5? Because that seems pretty strong. It's very much of a sword verse. It means you're to slay me. Dr. Timothy Winters said, well, that has only to do with the 7th century. That's not something that we bring in the 21st century. Immediately, Dr. Tamimi started jumping all over him, and they started arguing amongst themselves. I just sat back and let them continue arguing. Let them have the debate themselves. Finally, Dr. Tamimi turned to me and says, look, that has nothing to do with you anyways, Mr. Smith, because you're a Christian, and this is mushrikun. A mushrik is someone who commits shirk, someone who equates another with God. Akun means plural. You're not a mushrik. And I said, I'm so glad I'm not a mushrik. So who does it have to deal with? And he says, this has to do with the Hindus. Well, it just so happened there at the Cambridge Union, half the crowd was made up of Hindus. They had all come to the debate knowing that this would be a real congregation, and they wanted to see how I was going to deal with the Muslims. And there was a gasp in the audience as I said this. Now, in the Cambridge Union, whenever you finish a debate, you either go out of one of two doors. You either go out with the proposition or you go out with the opposition. I was arguing with the proposition. The other two were arguing with the opposition. Over 400 went out through the proposition. Only 6 went out to the opposition. It wasn't I that won the debate. It was this book that lost it. It was that verse, Surah 9:5. You can do the same thing. It doesn't take much to do what we're doing in London. It doesn't take much to argue this. Because everybody wants peace today. We have found 149 verses in this Quran that are violent. 149 of them. I'll leave my paper with you when I leave here so you can come back to Jack and get the paper on it. Dictating exactly where these verses are. When Muslims say that this book is not a book of violence, when Tony Blair gets up there and he says, I have read the Quran all the way through and all I can find is peace and violence, give them this paper. Just show this myriad of 149 verses, and they're all in the Medinan surahs. They are all in the most authoritative part of the Quran. Don't ever come back to this book if you want peace. There's only one book I know that gives us peace, and that's this book right here. The Gospel of Jesus Christ. It's the best apologetic we have. I love this book. Because this is the book that tells me that Jesus is not only just the messenger, he's the Son of God. They don't like that Son of God at all. Oh, they think that we're doing nothing more than talking about biological sonship. And I say, why don't you go to Surah 9, why don't you go to Surah 39, Ayah 4? Because in Surah 39, it says, for God, if he had willed it, could have a son. Even the Quran admits that God can have a son. And that's a biological son. My God, I'm glad I don't have that problem with the Bible. We know that that is not a biological son. God has pre-existed, has always existed, that that's a relational title. Even the Quran admits that. In Surah 2, Ayah 177, it talks about a traveler, somebody who's traveling along the road, and it refers to him as son of the road. Now, no Muslim knows that, no one Muslim believes that that man was born of the road. No, it's a relational title, and that's what we're talking about. I did a debate in Russia 2 years ago where there was two imams that came and debated me on the person of Jesus Christ. And as we sat there, we had to do it all in translation. The first challenge they gave to me is, how can you believe that God can have a son? So I answered them. I showed them. I took them to Surah 2, 177. So I took them to Surah 39, Ayah 4. And then they said, well, no, that's not the problem. What we really want to know is, how could God become a man? I said, ooh, dear me. You're asking me how God could become a man? Aren't you the one that say, Allahu Akbar, God is greatest? Aren't you the one that tells me that God is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, the three omnis? Aren't you the one that tells me all the time that God can, basically, he created the heavens and the earth, and now you're telling me he can't become a man? Shame on you. How dare you say God can't become a man? That's easy for God to do. Goodness sakes, he created it. You're telling me he can't participate in his creation? Maybe your Arab God can't become a man. Your God can't become a man. He has to stay in heaven. That's true, isn't it? You've got a pretty small God. Come on home. We've got the biggest God ever. And his name is Jesus Christ. Shame on you. Don't ever let Muslims hoodwink you on that. Don't ever let them get away with that. See, Muslims are always telling God what he can and cannot do. And I say, don't you ever tell God he can't become a man. That's man's thinking. God's bigger than that. Not only that, he became a man at the very beginning. He was a man right through history. You need to come back to my Bible. It tells you if you have any questions, you come and ask me. Let me tell you just where God became a man. And my God is big enough to become a man because he did become a man, I can be with him forever. And that's what I want to introduce you. You've got to bring that into your equation. You've got to bring that into your discussion. They have no idea that they were walking and talking with God in the cool of the day. In Surah 5, in Surah 7, and in Surah 20, it talks about this story. But nowhere in the story of the Garden of Eden is God in that garden. And if you take God out of that garden, everything falls to pieces. No wonder they don't want to find God on earth, because he was not there at the very beginning. And if he wasn't there at the beginning, he won't be there at the very end. Our God was there at the very beginning. He came down 2,000 years ago to rectify what went wrong at the very beginning so that we know what's on the other side of death. We got the whole scope of history right there. Thank God we got a big, big God. And he did come to earth. And he can come to earth. And because he came to earth, every one of us is going to be with him forever. That's the gospel. They need to hear it. Don't let them hoodwink you on that. But folks, here's the problem. Here's the problem. Who's going to do it?